everybody. Welcome to the new episode of Are We There Yet? Before we even start, I want to announce this month's winner of the Vibratex toy of your choosing, and that is Ellen Ann Moore. Congratulations, Ellen Ann Moore. Email us, email awty@gmail.com. So that stands for Are We There Yet, obviously. And let us know which toy you like. And we're so excited. Congratulations. And let's get into this. This is episode 24, and it's called Fighter. Welcome to Are We There Yet? I'm your host, Susan Ruth.
And I'm your host, Mara Adelman. And today we are three people having the real conversations and raising the questions that we all have about where is the there when it comes to dating, relationships, and sex. And today we have Angie, and I'm going to mess up your name now. Oh no, Angie Caporali.
Perfect.
I have it correct. And Angie and I have known each other for quite a while. And today we're talking about her experience using burlesque and boudoir photography and how that helped her heal from some sexual assault in her younger years. And yeah, Angie and I met in like 3 different ways, which is pretty funny. I lived right next to her mom when I lived in Napa. And so we met, I don't know, 6-7 years ago, something like that. And then I moved to Santa Rosa, and my real estate agents are super good friends with her. So we all have a winter camping trip. And I was like, oh, it's the same Angie. I love this. So, and here we are. So she's going to be nice enough to talk to us about her journey.
Hi,
It
Angie.
was destined.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Maybe start off with telling us a little background of who you are.
Well, I'm in process of becoming a Jungian life coach. I already have my degree in transpersonal and humanistic psychology. I originally had wanted to become a naturopathic doctor. Really young of age, I was like, yep, mind, body, soul. That is the ticket. And so my mom actually was very sweet. When I was 5, she had a massage therapist come to the house, and she let me have 20 minutes of it. And I was like, massage is the best thing on the planet. And so I became a massage therapist. That helped me get through college. I got my degree in psychology. I went on to do acupuncture school, realized that needles wasn't the only thing I wanted to do. So I used acupressure in my massage clientele, and I was a doula. So I got to help people come into this life, and I was a death doula. So I got to help people leave this life. And then I also was in wine, so I got to help people have a great time. And I did like
whether you were celebrating birth with people or the death with people, everybody was we
were having a great time. So currently I am now doing the training for the Jungian life coach because while I enjoyed getting to learn the aspects of 9-to-5 life and more like traditional work styles in that regards, I was like, you know what, this is getting back to the healing path is really where it's at. But also with my experiences that I've had and having been in burlesque and experiencing boudoir shoots myself, I was like, I can do healing in a way that like helps with like the fun, the joy, the Baobo, the belly goddess, the like just getting to enjoy the juiciness of life and helping other people with getting to enjoy that as well. So.
What drew you to Jungian philosophy?
So in my psych program, we did a lot of myth, dream, and symbol work. And so like humanistic psychology is like we are humans having spiritual experiences, and transpersonal psychology is where spirit having human experiences. And so Carl Jung is like one of the fathers in psychology, our like main studies, because he did the hero's journey. He's the one who talks about the shadow and archetypes. So it's a lot of that good richness. And sometimes our consciousness, like when there's issues coming up, our consciousness like does some good things to like help avoid, because it's just wanting us to survive, right? But like Jung using archetypes and using the hero's journey and like the healing power of story, like you're able to kind of bypass that, because we as humans are meant to like enjoy story together and learn from each other. So that's why like Aesop's tables and things, that fables and things like that are so popular to teach like lessons, because it's not like don't steal and bad things happen. It's like, if you steal, you get eaten. You know what I mean? Like it's a little bit easier. But also within ourselves, like there's parts of ourselves that are maybe scared, or like maybe there's like a force within us, and like learning when to like utilize that force, and it's okay. Like those different things are sometimes easier when you have an archetype, a story, things like that to embrace, than rather than like being like, oh, but that's not me. But you're like, oh, but this person was that, and maybe I can put on like a mental costume of that archetype or that like person or that story that makes you feel a little bit safer to try out those skills of like stepping forward, or like being a leader, or being brave, because it's not like you on your own. You're like, yeah, like Hercules did it, I can do it. You know what I mean? Things like that.
I love the images in the red book. I have one of the images on my wall in my office, and it does really speak to the soul having this human endeavor, such as it is.
Totally.
Yeah. Did that help you in retrospect see some of the more horrible things that happened to you in your life, of being able to distance the human experiencing that from the soul who has come in to experience that?
I think for me, it was really the Women Who Runs with Wolves, that book. Have you read it? Right?
Yeah.
So good. So in there, the heroine's journey is different from the hero's journey. So in the very beginning of the heroine's journey, there is she's like, basically the heroine is the daughter of this farmer, and she's like behind the shed like doing something, and the farmer, he's like off somewhere, and it's been a really rough like crop, like things are going downhill quickly, he's not going to have food to care for his family, and he like encounters a character that's like a devil or a trickster character or things like that, and they're like, I'm going to turn things around for you, like all you have to do is give me the thing that's behind your shed. Like you don't know what it is, right? But it's just a thing behind the shed, and you don't think that your daughter is behind the shed at that point, right? And so basically he realizes afterwards when he gets home that he had promised to like give his daughter away, and so they like try these different things to like keep her from being taken, but her hands end up getting like chopped off. So there's like a blood sacrifice that happens that is kind of part of the initiation of the heroine's journey. And with that, I think that that can be interpreted multiple ways. So for me, the first time that I was sexually abused was when I was a child. For other, like having like a menstrual cycle, or there could be some other kind of like taking of blood. Like I think so the heroine's journey isn't necessarily for people who identify as women, right? Like it can be anybody. And also to like the men in our society, a lot of them have been like cut with circumcision without their permission as a child too, right? So like there's a lot of different thoughts on that, but that is also a blood sacrifice. So there is, and both of those things, all of those things, there's a lot of trauma that happens around them.
Speaking from
So that was like, when I was reading that, I realized like, not that that was necessarily like, oh, as a spirit being, I chose that, because there's like discussions around that. But in either case, that was a pivotal moment that definitely shaped the future. So I also have a chronic illness, endometriosis,
Mm.
and the majority of people with endometriosis, they've noticed from like taking the data and things like that, is that most of them have been sexually assaulted before the age of 8. So it is like, they're like, oh yeah, that's really common. So it's well, it's not a cause, there's correlation, right?
Mhm. The body putting up massive defenses, growing extra tissue in a way to combat the violence.
Yeah.
I mean, I also have a history of like the women in my family have it, but mine came on really like young and really hardcore. So that could be, it could possibly be a factor. And it also makes sense for part of my journey, right? So
When did you start to find your voice?
a voice in regards to what? Like
Because I think the folks that I know who have been sexually assaulted, especially as a child, they are, don't tell anyone, don't speak of this. It's your secret that you carry, and that comes with its own extra trauma on top of feeling.
thanks for clarifying. Yeah, so when I was sexually, well, like molestation happened when I was at a preschool, and by other little preschool boys that were at the school. And I went from being really like a bubbly little happy like kid to like being afraid of everything. And I guess my mom told me that I told her there was a bumblebee in the corner of the preschool yard that was trying to kill me. And then like one time in the bathtub, I like told her what was happening, and she stayed really calm and was like, okay. And then she took a moment and went out and was like, ah. But she took me to the library. So the library was my safe place. And we ran into another mom and another little girl in the library. And that mom and little girl had been at that preschool the year before. And she told my mom, take your daughter out now. I listened to them. They said that it was bullying and that my daughter needed to just get over it and learn how to stand up for herself. But she's like, don't listen to them. This is wrong. Like, just take her out. And so my mom did exactly that. So my mom like was amazing and listened and acted and protected me. And a lot of people didn't have that like privilege and luck to have someone that could protect them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then later, so once you've been like sexually assaulted or molested, there's like a certain propensity that it's a higher percentage that it can happen again to you. So when I was in elementary school, I was sexually assaulted and so I was molested over a period of time and then officially raped and sexually assaulted by this person. And while my mom was absolutely amazing and listened to me the first time and I felt safe talking to her, the actual trauma of that experience, my brain shoved it into like, once again, it was like putting it out onto something else where there was a doll in the room that was trying to kill me and like was in the same in the corner, and it was like the same, like if you look at the spatial area of it, both times it was like in that corner, right? So that got like shoved down deep for survival, right? So for my little brain, he later was arrested for violating and raping his daughter over an extended period of time. So he went to jail, and I'm grateful for that. But yeah, so I didn't really like, I had worked on healing with therapy and different things like that with the first trauma from the preschool. But, with doing the work that I was doing, between doing body work and like also having friends who were sexually assaulted in high school and college. I later became a sexual assault victims advocate, and went and spoke to like elementary schools, kindergarteners, and teenagers about body rights and consent and communication. And I did a hotline, and I was like, I like, you learn more about it, right, as you're working in this field and working on healing yourself. And I was like, I feel like I've worked through the trauma from the high school, but I was like, but I still have these triggers that are really common of someone who had been like raped and penetrated. And I was like, and I don't remember that. I didn't remember that happening at that time. And I went through but I was like, like, don't remember it. You still like do everything you can to make sense. And with all my partners that I had dated and different things like that, I would always like have the conversation where I was like, listen, I'm like, I was sexually assaulted. Like, there are going to be times where like things I'm going to like check out, or I'm going to not be okay with something. It's not you, but I just want you to know, because there will be times where I'll just have to be like, nope, stopping, not like this can't happen right now. It's not you. It's literally what I need in order to feel safe. And that's where it is. And I also feel very grateful that like they were all like, absolutely, we want you.
You felt brave enough from your very first partners to kind of disclose that. Good job.
I did from an early age, but I think it's also because, so let me back up a little bit. When I was 12, I had a dream that I was raped, which was actually a memory, right? But I didn't know it at the time. So I was like, I never want to feel this way again. And I went into martial arts. And so I found jujitsu and the amazing sensei Loretta Silvani in Napa. She was phenomenal. She was a social worker. She worked with at-risk kids and also like elderly community. And I was raised Catholic and she was Catholic, so she like also understood the other aspects of that side too. And she was like only 5, like I'm 5'7" and like curvy, and she's like this beautiful little Filipino woman that was a tiger. And she was like, oh, come into the dojo. And she was like, oh, Dan is 6'7", okay, and 300 pounds. And she's like, come at me, Dan. Let's show her what we can do. And she has him by the pinky and she's throwing the 6'7" man. And she's like talking to me and just moving her arm and he's flying. And I was like, I want what she has.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So I was very lucky as well to have her and get to train with that, because it made me feel safer in my body. Like, at that time, there was more men than women in that martial art where we were. And so like I was constantly practicing with gentlemen. And when I went to like high school, most of the guys from my dojo were in high school too. So I kind of like felt like safe and protected that way. And it was kind of funny because when I went to the high school, I didn't know anybody because I hadn't been with them through the other paths. And so they'd be like, oh, who's that? And I'm like, that's Angie. She's from my dojo. She can kick your ass. So it was very helpful.
You should have tried from the minute you went to high school. That's cool.
Yeah, you gotta just like set a standard. You're like, that's what's happening. So that really helped me to feel safer in my body without even knowing fully what happened at that time. So but it was like, you're like, there, I remember one point in particular where she had you lay down and there would be like 7 people that would be trying to hold you down, and you would get out of it and like learn how to get out of it. And so it was great because you're like in situations that hopefully no one will ever be in. But if you ever were in that situation, it's not the first time that, like that you've experienced it. And so you can have a little bit more wherewithal of how that goes.
Yeah. So the brain doesn't run away from you. Right.
That it become, and your body already instinctually has practiced it. So you have some muscle memory.
Yeah.
And not that never happened to me in real life, thankfully. But like you start building up a certain amount of like confidence where I was like, I'm like, if 5 people came at me, I'm like, 4, I'm good. You know what I mean? Like you started like that kind of thing. So like, you know, as a 12 or 13-year-old girl walking into a place where you're just like not physically intimidated by people, because like anything that you learn, you also have to be able to do it on Dan, 6'7", 300 pounds. Like you feel better about that, right? But that's like just one aspect, because like later on I did a naturopath and Ayurvedic cleanse, and as I did that, like it was a year experience, like the memories started coming out and I started feeling not safe in my body, and I was like hiding in my house in a corner like with my knives. I have like metal, I already had like metal screens and big thick doors. No one was coming in, but it didn't matter because it was like processing that experience again. And so I did more therapy and I was talking about it, and I just was like, think this is like not moving for me. And I was like, I was just like, universe, God, anybody else out there on my team, like I'm going to bed, and like I really need something that's going to move this needle for me, because I don't want to be scared and I don't want to be like this traumatized forever, right? And the skills that I have right now aren't helping. So like, what is the next move? And I need like a written, like, leave me a post-it note or something. So I went to bed and I had a dream, and I had never known about burlesque before that, not been exposed to it. And in my dream, it was like burlesque, and I was taking a class, and I was like, I didn't know what that class looked like, but the word burlesque stuck with me. So in the morning I got up and I like Googled, and I was like burlesque, and it was like San Francisco, Bombshell Betty and the Burlesqueteers. And then it was like I was looking at the website, and she had a like basically a grant that you could apply for anyone who was a sexual assault or domestic violence survivor. And I was like, this is the teacher for me, because while I didn't use that like grant, I was like, I know that she knows that this is like a way of healing. And while I was like taking the classes, she set such a wonderful, safe and delicious and supportive space, and she's a total goddess. Love Betty. She's amazing. And she also was offering like this pinup kind of boudoir photo shoot at the time. And because we like developed characters, right? For we have a stage name. So like you like were like, who is she? So like for me, it was like, I was like, well, who would I want to be? Like how do I want that sensuality to look at? Like I want it to be like from a space of safety. I want it to be where like I can be fun, but I'm powerful. So like I can have this flirty sensuousness, but no one's gonna be like, well, you promised me that. Like it's just like there's already set boundaries with that, but I am sensual, and that's just like part of my nature. And so like I was like building this character. So my stage name was Rosie Booticelli. And I'm all, yeah, there we go.
It's very Italian.
And
I love it. Botticelli.
Botticelli, right? And I was just like, yeah, like Botticelli's art, the women are like so natural and beautiful and naked and safe. And like, when I did, so before we even, so with this class, you can choose to do the performance or not. So before I had even decided whether or not I was going to do the performance, halfway through, she had another option to like do this photo shoot. So if you do want to like promote your if Rosie wanted to like be available to be booked for other burlesque shows, like I could utilize these photos too, right? So I was like, well, oh, because I never really like saw myself as beautiful. Like I saw myself as an awesome person, but like that wasn't like, I was always like the role of like mother, nurturer, friend. And that didn't mean that like no one told me I was beautiful. That's not it, but just the role that I was used to like being in and portraying. So taking the boudoir like pinup photos was kind of wild because I was just like going through, like she was so great at like helping you pose, and we were like learning in class for the dancing posing. And like as we know, like when you are moving in a certain way, your body starts responding as if you're a certain way, right? So like we got to be in those poses, and then like seeing the photos, I was like, oh my God, that is me. I am like the sensual goddess that is fun and playful and powerful. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, but it was still safe at that point to be like, that's my stage, that's my stage character, right? And then when it came to the end of the class, like for the performance, my performance ended up being last.
It's so hard to go last.
I was like, oh my gosh. So like it was like the end performance. And what I did is I basically had this like cardboard car that like had different things that it needed to be put together to be used. So like when I like took off my dress, the wheels were on my chest. So then I like took off the wheels and used them like as fans and then like put them on the car. But then the car needed to be charged. And so my pasties were actually the positive and the negative of like a charger. So we like charged the car, and I went through this like reverberation that looked kind of like a faked orgasm, but really what it was transforming that energy of that stuck, those old stuck unsafe sensual energy into like just like pure joy and fun and pleasure and like laughter, right? So like one of my dear friends, we were like talking about this experience, and she said to me, she's like, I felt that my sexual trauma was being transmuted by watching you transmute your own sexual trauma. So it was like this beautiful moment of like owning that. And it was really great too, because my very first love, he showed up to watch the performance. My current person that I was seeing at the time, who is like so supportive of burlesque, because not every partner is okay with their partner performing, but he was there, and my besties showed up. So like I had so much love in that audience, but also too, there's like a lot to lose when you're no longer playing the role that you were playing in your life, right? For people. So the fact that these people not only showed up, but they like supported me in owning this other aspect, another role of myself. And then like not only that, but they like freaking celebrated it. So it was just such an amazing healing experience in that regard. And I definitely wanted to do that for other people. So for me, I'm doing boudoir photo shoots now, and like the people who find me are people who are like owning their body, owning their sensuality, owning these things that they were always powerful, always sexy, always like beautiful, and but they just didn't, that wasn't the realm that they hung out in, and accepting that about themselves. So like I feel so honored and like super humbled that people like trust me with creating this safe space for them to really just be themselves, because that's what being in burlesque and performing, like one time when I was on stage, the back of house that you have to get to, you had to walk through all the people at the bar to get to the backstage. So I'm literally in a G-string and pasties holding my things, which is a very vulnerable, like people are drinking, very vulnerable. And usually as women, no matter how clothed we are, like someone says something, cops a feel, does different things like that. But no one in the audience, at one point I had to like back up because people were coming through because it was a very tightly packed bar. And I ran into this guy and I was like, I'm so sorry. He's like, nope, no worries. But I was not groped once. No one ever said anything. Like going to burlesque performances, being in them, you see people of all bodies, all shapes, all sizes, all colors, like performing and literally just being celebrated. And it's such a beautiful community to be in and participate.
I love that. Beautiful. Do you feel like you have fully integrated, or is this a lifelong journey?
I guess it's so like even with like the heroine or the hero's journey with Carl Jung, like it's like onion, right? So you like complete a full spectrum and you're like, yes, I've healed. And then like something comes up and maybe there's a trigger, but it's like a slightly different way and it gives me another opportunity to heal. But it's never like it's not like the deep wound is still open, right? So like there's a lot of healing and it's like softer and easier each time where I'm like, oh, like if there's something that comes up now, it's usually because there's also other things in my life where I'm worn down or not taking care of myself as much or things like that, or like there's a lot going on, because then there's not like the healthy things that are already buoying me and my spirit, right? So it's just kind of like if you break your bone heals, but maybe sometimes like maybe at first, like when it rains, it might hurt, but then like later, not until you like go and you're like on a fabulous trip to Antarctica, like chasing some penguins or whatever, that you're like, oh, it's a little cold and then hurts a little bit, but it's not ever as bad as like for me, the beginning. Like this has helped integrate and heal so much. And
such a good analogy, Angie. That is, I'm going to use that with patients in the future. That is such a good analogy. And clients, yeah. Just you're still always going to kind of maybe feel that, but never to the degree as when it first happened.
And maybe well, not like, I mean, because like
work.
Maybe one day it's raining and you had a lot of inflammatory food and so now you feel it, or maybe you were like, no, I'm doing great and I'm in a great place in my life and this rain didn't hurt at all. So it's you're not married to it forever, but like the idea is to get tools so that if it does come up, like you're not sideswiped, that you're not like that you don't know how to handle it, right? That you at this point, hopefully you've had a lot of communication, that you learned that you only have partners that support you, that like acknowledge that it's not your fault, that they just know that like that's what you need. Why would it be anything else, right? Like you bring people around you, you like learn how to prune your life and you learn how to like speak about it. And like I said, I've been very lucky in the times that I've spoken about it, that by the time that I got to like the one person that like said something different, I wasn't like, that's me. I was like, that's you, buddy. Yeah. Right. I'm like,
that one's on you.
Yeah, I'm like, that's not that's you. So I've been like, I think you get braver as you speak and people like embrace you. Is really what it is. So I really try to do the embracing when people are brave to share their story, because literally it's not their fault. It was not my fault. It's not their fault.
No.
It's something that happened to them.
These are horrible statistics, but I took some statistics down. 1 in every 6 US women will be raped every year in the United States.
That's just reported.
That's just, oh yeah, good point. That's only the reported ones. And 1 in 33 American men has experienced or an attempted or completed rape. As far as abuse goes, 1 in every 3 girls and 1 in every 13 boys in the United States. That's crazy to think about. You like look at 5 of your Facebook friends or 13 guys that you know. Like that's those are huge numbers. And it's not, so thank you for talking about this, Angie, because it's not talked about enough. We had some abuse in my family when people were younger too. And I know Susan's family, like it's huge numbers. And so the more we speak about it, I think is helpful for people.
And I mean, like, I mean, maybe also like the channels that I go in, because I've done a lot of healing work, like mediums, like between massage and like psychology and energy work and things like that. But like, honestly, it's been more rare to find someone who hasn't struggled with something on that than it is someone who has. And majority of people, it was never like reported or like something that they took to court or any like kind of documented thing. So
brain is also set up to block it out. So many people don't even, they recall the experience as something other than what it is. For your example, perfectly, the bumblebee or the doll, you know, and sometimes those memories don't start to come out until much later. And triggering things could happen anytime in any place. And even with an extreme amount of work and therapy and all that, it still, there can be a moment that just feels like it sends you back to square one. Yeah. And what's so interesting, I mean, I love that you sit down and talk with your partners and say, this is my experience. And so when I have these feelings or something becomes overwhelming or I'm triggered, this is what I need, and to have partners that hear you. And I think about, in terms of consent, how many of us, we give away consent in so many different ways. And like kids learning relationships and growing up, you know, your teen years, what you allow to happen versus what you really want to have happen because you're scared, but you just go get along, you know, you go along to get along or whatever. And even as an adult, maybe you'll behave a certain way just to get yourself out of a situation. Or it's weird. It's like the ebb and flow of consent is a really big deal that isn't discussed because we think of it in terms of, oh, this is, it's only bad if it turns into a molestation or a rape or, you know, this or an attack. When if you're on a date with someone and they want to make out with you and you don't want to make out with them, just kissing, that's still an issue. That if you feel compelled to do it because it's just easier, or you don't want them to be mad at you, or you don't want to make it weird or whatever, that's in its own way, that's an assault, that's a consent issue. And I don't think we talk about that enough, about how people are put in those really vulnerable situations, not just females, males too, you know, and non-binary and all that. I just think humans go through life, I think, sort of giving away pieces of themselves without even really acknowledging that they're doing it. And that builds up a lot of wounds inside that they might not even be able to voice.
I'm curious.
I think that go ahead, Mara.
I'm curious about something based on what Susan just said. Do you feel like, Angie, because I'm, as Susan was saying that, I was remembering like my first blowjob with my high school boyfriend and how I really didn't want to, but I was kind of coerced. And so I went along with it and that kind of icky feeling stuff. Do you feel, Angie, because you were you already at such a place of like my body, not your body, based on what you went through, that you didn't experience those things when you were younger, or that you still kind of did until you really found your boundaries?
Well, so like sometimes people, when they go through that kind of assault, they can go to extremes one way or the other, where you can be very like I don't want to say sexually free, because free is not the correct word for it, but you engage in a lot of sexual activity as a way of like, it's a way of processing and different things like that. Or you can go to like, don't touch me, don't do anything like that. And so, and there's like anywhere in between, right? But like, sometimes if you're looking at like an extreme for that, that's what's happening. What you're talking, so for me, if you're talking about me specifically, like I was like, that's a hard no, because like my body was like, it was I was also raised very Catholic and religious and things like that, but I was like literally not ready, just not ready, like religion or whatever aside. And so I was just like, hard no. hard no on that. And even to this like day, there's been like with partners, I have to be like, well, you literally cannot ask for a blowjob. Like that's not like, if that's something I want to offer, that's going to be me offering it. But I like, if you ask me, that's going to be a hard no for me because of the different things that happened. Yeah, it shuts me down.
Only when I'm feeling like I want to give that, is that an appropriate time to give that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But like I've had a lot of practice communicating this, right? And but I think like jujitsu gave me like like the safety of like, this is my body and this is what I am comfortable with and what I'm not. And I'm not really like I was always a little bit of a strong-minded creature. So like for me, when I'm immovable, I'm immovable. But if there's like a question mark, then that's where it is. And I think like, so when I was doing the work with the teenagers portion about consent, there would be two of us that would go, and there would be one person. Basically the situation that we would like act out is there's two people on a date and they have two very different experiences of what's happening on that date, because like no one is communicating, right? So we like walk through what that looks like and felt for each person. This person felt very violated because they did not feel comfortable with it, and this person thought all signs were a go, and so they thought it was a perfectly fine and that person was into it. So like communication is super important, but then also too, like this is where communication is important, but your safety is even more important, because we all will do, like I would suffer through a lot or go through a lot to make sure that I got out safely and alive, right? Like I've had more than one or two occasions where friends were telling me about situations. They're like, I just did it because I like wasn't sure what was going to happen if I said no. And they're like, I wanted to get home safe and alive.
That's Susan, you were kind of alluding to that. Yeah. It's that feeling of like, as women, like, well, if I do this, then I'm not rocking the boat and nothing.
Or men, everybody.
Yeah, anybody. Yeah.
Anybody. Take it to my experience, but men probably do I've had a man tell me he was raped once, like by a woman, like that he wasn't feeling consensual about. So yeah, it can happen across the board.
I worked in wineries, right? And like people could be on both sides, were very inappropriate. And I often, like, there was this one time where a group of women who were like on a bachelorette trip, and he was a beautiful man. Like, I just remember like was looking down this hallway and I saw him like leaning out of a door trying to get out, and I saw a hand like pull him back in, and I literally had to go in and like unhand them from him. They were trying to take off his shirt and different things like that, because they're like, oh, you should want to be touched, right? And it's like, no, that's not there's
definitely a double standard, I think, for women and men, and a reason why men don't come forward a lot. I mean, it's hard enough to get women to come forward, or, you know, girls to come forward, but there's such a stigma. Like, you should want that. What's wrong with you? You know, you should want your teacher to be hitting on you when you're 12, or, you know, whatever it is. And of course, that's insane. Body autonomy is just, I think it's such a thing that needs to be talked about and is so not talked about. And it's funny because, you know, you watch the backlash of things like the Super Bowl with Rihanna up there, you know, and she's touching her body and she's having full body autonomy in those moments. And the world goes insane. What a whore, you know, how could she do that? It's like, it's her body. She gets
not to mention, is she pregnant? It was all felt very,
regardless of that. It's just the gyrating seemed to really stir up some folks. And I thought, you know, it's kind of like you're speaking to the burlesque. It's like, she's in her body. She owns her body. I have no idea what her history is or anything like that. But if she's like most of us on this planet, she's probably had some unwanted advances, and she's in the music industry. And as a person from the music industry, I can guarantee it, she has. So, you know, I was like, isn't that interesting that there's such a backlash of humans even saying, this is my body and I'm going to do with it as I will. I don't know. I find that really interesting too.
Well, they're like, if we get to choose what happens to your body, we're completely comfortable with making
Yeah.
you mainly naked or whatever. But like, what was it? There was like another Super Bowl where there was like, it was like, was it Shakira and J-Lo where they had these
Yes.
gorgeous, like corsety outfits. And
Gorgeous.
they're like, how dare they? And I'm like,
How dare 50-year-old women wear booty shorts?
Yeah. God bless them for being able to wear booty shorts.
God bless them. God bless them.
Looked amazing.
Yeah. It's so interesting. I think it's wonderful that you're doing this work and you're helping other people come to this work as well. I mean, again, as you speak to the idea of the soul having a human experience, yeah, like I believe personally in my belief system, I believe that we go through these lifetimes and we're given different things to learn, and hopefully we grow. And some of it is horrific and terrible. And I think, why did I have to go through that? I mean, do I not have enough character? This is insane. And then I think, well, I'm making these choices somewhere in the ether and coming back and experiencing these things. And it's hard to dance along that line of like, I know that I somehow, this is me learning things, but also do I have to? But I do. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you are a spiritual person and a spiritual being having a human experience, it's exhausting.
It's exhausting.
There's a lot of times where I'm like, that experience was not my fault, but it is my problem. So therefore it's my responsibility that I work on it so that I don't expel or vomit or project that onto other people. And that when I find the way through, I've also, like, people have created routes for me to find help, and then more feet on that path will like help others find help for that, and like create conversations like this and make communication easier, like in regards to speaking up for ourselves, whether or not that's something we choose to report. Speaking our story is super, super important. I mean, they do sweat lodges for women and men that have had sexual assault to speak their stories, sweat it out. Like, this is not a new issue. It's a very like old wound in the universal consciousness that we are all working to heal. And it's something that, like, if we make it easier to speak about, then I think that it'll be faster for us to like handle and heal and move forward.
Yeah, super sharing, Angie. Thank you.
Absolutely. And that's kind of what I was alluding to. It's like, I hate that experiences happen to you, but I love the fact that you are taking those experiences and healing the world in your own way and on the people that cross your path and anyone who watches this. And by the way, anybody watching, we do have resources in the information section below. There's RAINN, which is an incredible organization, RAINN.org. There's a lot of, if you or anyone is having any of these kinds of experiences, please reach out to someone. You're not alone. There are a lot of ways that there's help out there, is what I'm trying to say. And Angie, for anybody that's looking to get into boudoir photography or into burlesque, how might they find stuff like that?
So I would like suggest Googling, or if you're looking for burlesque, Google burlesque classes. If you're in the San Francisco area, the amazing Red Velvet is teaching different classes. Bombshell Betty still offers different videos that you can practice at home and things like that.
I'll add some links to her down below. That's fun.
Love Bombshell Betty, my dear heart. She helps heal so many. And in regards to boudoir photography, there are a lot of us out there. So what I always suggest is like, find someone that you feel called to, because you're having this wonderful, beautiful, intimate experience and it's about you. And like, so someone that makes you feel safe, someone that you like think that you'll have fun with, that you feel seen by and heard by, and that there's a lot of different like flares and styles. Like some boudoir photographers are kind of like more like sweetheart cheesecake, some are a little more like racy. I've got a little bit more like of ethereal archetype. Like I'm like, we can do badass Hecate goddess, we can do dungeon dragon, we can do angel sweetheart, but like you need to find the person that like speaks to you. Like there are so many great people. I'm in Houston and Napa, so you can come check me out if you're in my
We're
area.
definitely going to link to all of your little pieces because that's fun.
Thank you. And also too, just want to like shout out that if you're in the Napa area and you wanted to like have someone to talk to about assault or domestic violence, or if you're undocumented and you're going through this and you need an escape, NEWS here in Napa are amazing. And they also have attorneys there to help. So if you do want to press charges, they can help navigate that too, because I know a lot of people are afraid to come forward because of documentation issues. So like if that's something you want to do, like there are resources to still support you to get you safe.
They're actually above our clinic. And so it's been amazing because we can do things like sneak people up the back stairs. Oh, I'm sorry, you need to stay outside. She's getting her pap smear, and then take women and men. But I've only shuffled women up there, and they do an amazing job. And like Susan said, we link to the RAINN. I'm going to give like 5 quick tips for people that haven't started this journey, but we link to some articles down below that kind of talk about it, some videos that talk about it. But essentially, if you're just starting this kind of opening up part, you want to open up, and feel free to add at the end, Angie, if there's things we missed, but open up about what happened to you. Work on coping with the feelings of guilt and shame that come up. And so therapy or any other kind of practice to feel better. Prepare that there might be flashbacks and upsetting memories. Reconnect to your body and your feelings, which is probably what that burlesque and boudoir kind of did, right? Stay connected to people, and that was probably hard for you. Like you said, that hiding period must have been less connected, which nurture yourself. So make sure you're taking good care of yourself, eating well, exercising, doing the things that feed your soul. And yeah, it's hard. There was this graph on one of the articles that I printed out, and it made me happy because you're here talking about this stuff, and because Susan and I put this stuff out all the time. It was a graph about stopping sexual violence. And it had all these different categories, and we do all of them under the teaching one. I was so proud. These are ways to prevent sexual violence: increase social and emotional learning, teaching healthy, safe dating and intimate and relationship skills to teens, which you did. And hopefully someday we'll have a strong teen audience. So hopefully they'll watch all these as well. Promoting healthy sexuality and empowerment-based training. And so the more I think all of this is put out in the world, maybe someday there'll be less of it. I'm going to put all your links down below. And did I miss anything? Those were just quick, like, the RAINN thing is probably the biggest place. The link for RAINN that Susan mentioned is probably the best place to go because they cover all of it. And they have the National Sexual Assault Hotline that you can call. And in 2 weeks, we will be taught. So, and this comes out, we're doing this, it's coming out March 31st. The entire month of April is Sexual Assault Violence Survivor Month. And so it's a good time to be kind of doing all of that. Our next episode, episode 25 in 2 weeks, will be dating and the apps. Because everybody loves the online dating scene. Let me tell you, we're gonna try and streamline it and help people have a little more fun with the dating and the apps.
Yeah. And Angie, it's been a real pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you for being open and honest about your experience and your journey. I think that it emboldens others when they hear people talk about their stories, and it's so important. So we really appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'll look forward to coming back and visiting with you again.
Right. Well, we will have you back when you're done with all your training, and you can tell us how it's all going.
Yeah.
Anybody, don't forget, you can subscribe to be our March winner. So subscribe down below to get put in the drawing for your toy from Vibratex of your choice. as well as if you follow us on Instagram, we will put you in the drawing. And we really would love some more personal questions from people, dating situations, sex situations that we can address on the air. Of course, it'll be anonymous. So please email us at emailawty@gmail.com. That will also put you in the running for a free Vibratex toy. And we're looking forward to more engagement, and everybody stay well and connected.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.